everyone, and welcome back to SoldOutChat. I'm Kay, the marketing coordinator here at Above Promotions. And today, we're tackling a question every executive needs an answer to: why they are not buying from you. We're diving deep into the critical disconnect between your sales goals and your brand's reputation. This isn't about weak leads, it's about a strategic alignment that either validates or destroys your pitch. To guide us through this high stake conversation, we have two experts who live at the intersection of strategy and performance. First, our CEO, Ebony Vaz. Ebony's background in engineering and data driven research gives her a unique perspective on bridging communication gaps to ensure brand integrity drives revenue. Hi, Ebony.
I am so thrilled because I have known our guest for this month's Sold Out Chat for a long time. I'm not even gonna call it the years because then that's gonna make us seem like we're older than what we are, and we're only like 21. So that's another story. Anyways, I am so thrilled to have Leighton Kyler with us today. He is the principal and architect of the peak performance paradigm. I mean, he has over 30 years of sales experience, technology, organizational growth. He is a renowned expert. I mean, companies call him up to come in and bring transformation. He merges the psychology together, but you guys know we like. He brings in all of the things that are needed for leadership to have the insight so that they can get the revenue generating strategies. And so when we said we are going to do a sales podcast, a sales episode, it had to be none other than Leighton Kyler. So, welcome, Leighton. Thank you so much for gracing us with your presence here on the Sold Out Chat.
I appreciate that. I was actually looking around trying to figure out who you were talking about, but okay, I got
Well, you are like that go to. I mean, we would bring you in to Techstars Startup
it.
Week, and people
Yes.
who had been learning about startups had no idea what sales meant for their
Mhm.
organization. And so that's why it was so important for you then to be a part of the community. And so we've kept that relationship even going since. So let's jump in. You're a sales trainer. You are somebody who has had the expertise to go into the big companies, global companies, and you can drop the names if you want to, but I won't do it because I don't know if you can. But also, you've had to be work the smaller businesses. So I want to know
Mhm.
from you, what is the single biggest communication gap that you have seen when you've gone into these communities between the sales team and the marketing team? What are they particularly missing? And then when you see what they're missing, what are you doing as an exercise to help bridge that gap?
That's good. And I remember you told me once. You said I've never heard people approach sales from the perspective that you do. So and nothing has changed. So the gap is identity. Is the business identity, right? Because here's what happens. Marketing and PR, right? They got to say, okay, here's the strategy. This is what we're going to do. And then they build the brand possibly around the product, company, the values, those things. Then the sales guys get the list and say, okay, here's what we're going to do. But I know, the problem is in the identity, right? And that's the law of big picture. Because that vision, first off, has to be casted. And so we all know, this is what it is. This is where we're going. So that's the communication gap. And so what do we do to do that? Let me go back. Because why? Because it's a mindset and a heart set, right? And you'll hear me say this many times because we got to know, what we need to feel, then what we need to do. And marketing, as you know, and that creates that emotion. And that emotion creates the flow, right? That's how buying decisions happen. It's emotional and if I don't know the flow in which I'm supposed to be on that same parallel, I'm not speaking the same language. Right?
Mm,
It's kind of the same family. And if you don't know your history and your family tree, where you come from, you don't know who you are, right? And
hmm
where we're going. So
Yeah.
that has to be done. So really a great solution. What I like to do is get everybody in the room, get everybody together, regardless of where they are, and say, okay, what are we doing and where are we going with that? And then getting senior leadership to cast that vision So it's clear because somebody has to set that bar and their standard and not who knows best. Because everybody got roles,
Mm,
right? So there has to be leadership. And then in all things, and hear me, in all things, in all aspects of life, if there's an issue, there's a leadership issue. That just
mm.
how I see it, right? Because you got a guy, and if that's not there, then you can't have the trinkle and the cohesive unity.
Yeah. And I love what you said about the fact that there has to be identity, right? And
Mhm.
then even when you said everybody thinks they know best, because when sales is over here doing their thing and marketing is doing their thing, there is definitely a bit of ego that comes into it because both groups feel like they're the ones that drive the revenue. Both groups feel like they are the ones that know the path forward. But you're right, it has to be the leadership bringing that forth and bringing forth that identity and setting forth that path.
Yes, ma'am.
So, how do you actually, because let's talk about this. There's times where the leader can cast out a great vision, marketing and sales is on the same team, but maybe the product just is not there. It's not to the level of the vision that the CEO has cast, and that product, that service has a poor reputation. Online reputation, it sucks, their reviews are bad. Now, how do you coach a sales professional who knows that there has been some negative things that have happened, some negative reviews, some negative
Right.
PR? How do you coach them to be able to pitch, but without sounding reactive or defensive of their company when in the back of their
Right.
mind they know the product is crap?
Right, right. Ooh, yeah. See, that's a hard one. And why? Because there's two pieces in there. They're bad press, but then there's crap product, right?
Hmm.
So, and that becomes situational because here's and in truth, and I'm gonna get to the question, but it's for me, it's hard to get behind something I don't believe in. One, right?
Hmm.
So if you got a crap product, it's like, is it all crap? And I think it might be a version. Let's qualify a little bit. We got a version there. We tried to do this upgrade. Yeah, it didn't work out how we thought it would be, right? And it was a complete flop. Yeah, I get that. So a couple of things. One, it's just part of life, right? You can't see it as okay, it's something I gotta offend, it's something I gotta own, first off. So if it's true, you own it. It's true, right? We don't you so most people say, okay, here's how we're gonna do it. But you do and should be prepared for the answers. So just like in this is how we coach. So in any other things, when you're preparing, say for this big presentation to get this deal, you go through all kind of mock scenarios. You got a list of 50 questions, 100 questions. If they ask this, this is how we're going to respond. This is how we're going to repair. So you be prepared for it. However, I make it situational because it depends on that person and what the question is. So you never answer if it's a bad thing an open-ended question about something bad. Meaning, people will ask you, buyers will ask you an open-ended question so you can start talking. So you got to be mindful. You got to be real slow to speak. And there's some principles on that. Be swift to listen, right? Because I have to hear what you really are asking me. What is the issue? And I would more what I do, I will ask the question back. Let me make sure I understand what you're asking me about the product. And then be prepared with answers, owning it candidly, not saying anything bad about the company, and using my interpersonal skills, my relationship skills to get through it. Like, yeah. And when they ask, like, yeah, that didn't work out well for us, did it? Yeah. And just, bringing light for it because it's the truth and do it. But then shifting that conversation to the high ground. But this is what we learned. This is based on us being a company with integrity and honor. As our brand says, as our reputation is, as you know, the product, the launch before this was XYD in our customer service and things are stellar. So this is our plan. This is how we're moving forward. And then guide that and direct that. They're on the same page and owning it. The worst thing you can do is not own it or make excuses for it,
Hmm.
especially if it's not yours. Our CEO or whoever that leadership is said, yeah, he put a apology out indicating this to the market, indicating these are the variables that were there. We had some unforeseen things. Who has not had an issue? Who has not had a problem, right? So everybody can relate to that.
Yeah.
And then shifting it also to a success story. Yeah, and so you shift it upward and then talk about your successes, then talk about the goal, talk about the plan, talk about shifting again to what are your needs, going in, building that relationship, never leaving it there, just taking it, diffusing it, owning it, and walking away. Because if you try to hold the secret, then it has power. Yeah, diffusion. Right.
It holds power. And something else that you said is this is what we learned from it.
Right.
That will diffuse the situation clearly because it's
Mm-hmm.
like you're on top of it, you're addressing it and you have figured out how to overcome it. I love that statement. This is
Yes.
what we learned. That is a great
Yes,
statement.
ma'am.
Now, in this you mentioned like you need to be prepared. So, you mean to tell me a salesperson shouldn't just pick up the phone and start dialing and start calling? Like what is the
Well,
type of research that customers and let's talk it from a customer standpoint, not just the sales standpoint, because the salesperson needs to be prepared. But now we see because customers are very fluent with getting online and doing their research, calling up their contacts, going in LinkedIn, hitting up people that they know who may have did that. So
mhm.
how are we able to get a sales team prepared so that they can listen, like you said, listen, and then be able to reference any type of research that someone has done to help build that trust and strengthen that pitch for the sales team.
Okay. Yeah. People still pitch? Man, okay. All right. Okay, I mean, all right. So
Yes,
here's
yeah,
the thing.
yeah. Okay.
I know
Forgive the
they do,
word
but
pitch,
you
but
you
I
got
know
to
what
be
you, yes.
prepared, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
here's the thing. I say this and I say this here. There's a difference between journeymen and eagles. Okay, eagles have conversations. Journeymen do presentations. Right. So a lot of salespeople
Mm.
are Vanna Whites. Although, I'm gonna date myself, but they be like, "This is what we got. Here's the form. Let's look at this. Oh, I can do this. I can do right feature. Oh yeah." But eagles, they come in and they have conversation. The best of the salespeople. One of the things I learned very early on in selling is that, well, revenue generation. Right. I put, we're generating revenue. Selling is that one off, that ego, but we're generating revenues. We're taking over territories. We're focused big picture of where we're going, right? To owning that space. You you have to first be a great storyteller, right?
Hmm.
Because if you can't tell a story, how you gonna keep somebody's attention? And I gotta build, and this might lead into some other conversation, but I gotta be able to build trust with you in my conversation by listening to you. So one of the things I have to do is understanding your buying process. See, we begin with, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. I gotta align with you. I can't have you align with me. And that's the flaw with what people make. Okay, I'm gonna do this, then next I'm gonna do that. I align with you. I understand your process because I'm listening to you. Right? So now as I'm listening to you, I'm defining my process parallel to what you do. And so
Hmm.
at the end of the day, we're building a relationship as we move forward. And in that
Hmm.
relationship, now we're communicating about what your needs are. It's about you. And then I have to know, if I'm talking about you, I have to know and understand what value proposition I'm bringing to the table, right? What am I bringing to the table? Because value gets business. Because if I can help you shift you do it, that's how I'm going to get business. I don't even know if I really answered your question in. See, that emotion flew in, and it was like, oh yeah, this is good. Let's go. So, and I wanted to bring it in, not to go too far, but so much goes into that. Okay, so you got eagles, journeymans, you got emotional intelligence, you got to read people, you got to be able to really listen to what people are saying. So you know who I am. I'm a kingdom man. So you got to be able to have that discernment and pull back the layers in the middle of that conversation to really get to what is somebody really saying. See, I have to, music is played in between the notes, right? Like if you hit a piano key, then the music goes. It's not the keys. So you got to really listen to what is being said. Not what you want to hear. Salespeople get the happy ears. Oh, I'm buying. Oh, you gonna buy? You got a product? Yeah, let's go. I can do it. And they never really make that mark of getting to what that buyer's heart is, how they want to do, and what they want to achieve. And that's what we always gotta listen to. We're here to serve. Salesperson is there to serve a need, to serve a problem, to help that business get to the level they're trying to get to. And if I'm not there to serve, I will never help that client do it to get there.
So it's I'm pulling from what you're saying. One, yeah, we shouldn't say pitch, right?
You can, I mean,
But
I
two,
don't know. It's okay. I
two,
get it.
but two, moving from thinking about sales to revenue generating. And I mean,
Mm.
that's in itself, that statement in itself, you said that, and I'm like, that's a shift. I felt like that shift, like, oh my gosh, like I need to be rethinking how we're doing and not thinking so much as we're sales, but revenue generating actions and opportunities and pathways instead of just sales. And so one of the things also too, what I think is why I've always loved the work that you do is because I feel like we're kindred on being servants, and being able to understand like we want to help you do what needs to be done for your business to grow, for you to generate revenue, because we see that you've got employees that you need to make sure get taken care of. We see that you yourself need to build wealth for your family. And so having that servant mentality, I think that really changes the level of the conversation.
Mhm.
But I gotta like drive it back to, you said listen, listen. And I think sometimes when people are ready to sell, I get, pitched all the time for sales opportunities and they're not listening, right? They haven't even bothered to do the research. You're trying to sell me on marketing services. Do you know who you just called?
Exactly. Exactly.
So there's levels to this.
Right.
I even pick up
Mhm.
on when you're saying that there's the eagles that see above, and being able to listen to someone allows you that opportunity to see above. And I love it. You're dropping all the gems for us today. And I think that all of that is not something that comes natural. It's training, right? So, how do you coach the sales reps, revenue generating reps? How do you coach them so that they can seamlessly integrate the brand's established success stories? How do you help coach them to put those into conversations and help the interaction to shift from being transactional to helpful?
I love it. I remember I was wanting to achieve something before, right? And the person, I was like, you just did it with this person. I want that. And they looked at me, true story, hurt my feelings. They looked at it and said, man, but I had so much more to work with, with that person. Meaning I didn't have all the stuff they needed to get me there. It hurt my feelings, but it taught me a lesson. And one, I just did what you said. You have to tell a story relevant to it, because storytelling is kind of like talking in parables. So you're talking about a person who's sitting right there and what you're talking about, but you're talking about a different client. And if you can't use words to create a picture in the mind's eye, right? That thought, that feeling, then that picture. And you can't help them to create a picture in their mind, seeing themselves working with you, building with you, growing with you. You've not succeeded at what your job is. I don't have to show you a product. I don't have to tell you anything. All right, let's go back to identity a little bit, right? Identity is, they got something that says, when I remember saying, you may be the only Bible they see, or you may be the only whatever that is, right? That represents that integrity, that represents that honor, that represents that brand, that represents whatever that is. So that person has to represent that. And whatever that branding is that you're saying, that's what they need to show up as. And that's that seamlessness of the storytelling, because the storytelling, and again, selling is about the big picture, forming that picture, right? So it's three things. When you're forming the picture, you got to tell them, and I may have said this earlier, what they need to know, how they need to feel, then what they need to do. Okay? So if you can't do that, and that's how you get trained up. So what do they need? You got to, one, your identity. the business identity, who you are, because you got to put the I am before the I do. So when you show up, it's like, this is who I am. This is my background. Let me tell you about my story and how that works with the company, right? And I'm bringing this. I remember being in a situation as a consultant, and it was about a contract, and they had brought me in to be a consultant, and they were about to lose. It was a multi-million-dollar contract, and they were about to lose the contract because the vendor lost faith in the leadership in the company. And I asked them, I said, "Yeah," and they was like, "We got two ways we can do this." And I said, "Well, here's a third way. Trust me. You don't know me, right? But here's my background. Here's what I've done. Allow me an opportunity to do it this way. And here's the strategy." And Gay laid it out, and he was like, "We never thought about that. Okay, we can do that. And here's the timeline in which we can do it." So by establishing that credibility, giving stories of your experience, but you're actually painting a picture of that vendor, that client, that prospect of doing business with you. That's what you're doing. You're giving them to see them doing business with you. And if you can't, and there's arts, right? And you got to practice it. But if you can't story tell, if you can't we weave in and out of conversations and bringing people in with that, because when you're doing it, you're sharing who you are, you're sharing your values, you're sharing your experience, and you're letting them know what matters to you. And what matters to you, here's the part where they need to study, should be their value proposition, should be what their company stands for, should be what their vision is. It should be that. So you're aligning with their values in their buying process without them even realizing that's what you're aligning to. And once you do that, now we got integrity, we got trust. Like, wait a minute, they do what I do. And all I did was three things. I asked open-ended questions. I listened to what they said, keyed in on three things. Then I summarized it and say, this is what it is. And then for whatever miraculous reason, people are like, wow, they're listening. They understand what I want.
Yeah. And there's that. But that's experience. That's why people have to have a consultant with your experience, because this isn't something, I mean, people are going to listen to the podcast and that's great, and they're going to get these aha moments. But then there's still this part of they have to be implement these things that you're sharing. And it takes a lot of practice to be able to tell the story and the story that needs to be told. So let me roll into our next and our final question here, is because there's nothing new under the sun, right? There's different iterations, but there's nothing new under the sun. And so people will have a product and all they want to do is try to focus on the feature. So I'll give you an example. Right now, AI. Everybody wants to say, my product does AI, I use AI. Does it matter? Probably not in what person is looking for. They're looking for you to deliver a solution and not just you use AI. Ooh, that's great. So how do you help someone or coach a sales team, coach a client, and to stop relying on just some features, some things that are ear tingling in the market right now, and actually build a framework to have people trust and make the conversation relevant and really position the company to stand out from everybody else that's talking about AI.
Right. Yeah. You know, it's funny. I go on Facebook, like you said. I mean, not Facebook, I'm sorry, LinkedIn. Everybody's selling. I'm like, wow, wow. And I'll write back, how you doing? And just don't say anything. How are you? You know, how was your day? Right? That's it. So here's the point. We talked about identity. Identity is unique, right? Identity is like the DNA of the business. So that DNA is unique. What does uniqueness transform to is a niche. So you got to know your behavior. You got to know your strengths, your goals, and more importantly, the purpose you serve as a business. So no business should be a me too. Right? I'll never show up. If I see I'm in a room and all the salespeople, everybody selling, walking around giving out cards, you know where I'm be? I'm be at the back of the room, looking, observing, watching, moderating. And then see the one go, right? And it's purposeful, it's focused, it's intentional. Because if you're trying to be like everybody else, this is the trend, that's all it is a trend. So when the trend, so you are chasing the market, right? Let me give a better analogy. Well, if you look at a pie chart, 5% of the people and 100% are looking at what you want, what you're selling. Only 5%. How do you get to that 5% is the key to branding, marketing, and selling, right? That's what it is. And so you got, it used to be the numbers game, and that's what most people pay depending on the product. Okay, I got to make calls. I got to dial for dollars, and that's what everybody do. They're dialing for dollars. So while everybody dialing for dollars, you flip the script and go quality over quantity. And if you're looking for quality long-term relationships, right, you find those companies that have tradition, that have values, that are legacy companies. Generational wealth is important to them. My sons inherited the business of my family, or I started it. Well, what is the mission? Well, I started this, and companies that share with all the employees revenue shares and doing those things. Why? So as a peoplepreneur, I'm in the people business. People sell to people. We got to be relational. And, early on, and I love it, we met, it was selling to the non-sales person. Now it's relationship selling, right?
Mm-hmm.
For the non-selling executive and do it. How do you ask questions into a deal? So I need to get to know you. I need to get to understand you. I need you and I to build a relationship of trust. And how do you do that? There's trust frameworks and model, but I need to do that through authenticity, right? How do I be myself? How do I come in and let you see me? And most people, and I'll use me as an example, say, man, we love your down to earth style. I'm just going to be me. I'm going to show up. I'm going to be professional, but I like to tell jokes. Why? I can open people up, people get comfortable, and then you can go in, right? And so I'm there for a purpose. I'm there to serve a need, and I'm there to understand what that is. I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm here to serve a need. And if I don't know what need my business serves, I can't develop a niche. I can't go in and not be a me too. And most
Mm-hmm.
people, most companies are a me too. Look at me. I
Mm-hmm.
got AI. Look at me. Look at me. I do AI better. Okay, good. I'm happy for you, right? But then I'm leading with features, benefit, product. This is what it's gonna do. But what am I mapping it to? Right? What am I mapping it to? If I don't understand one, your buying process, go to that buying process, understand what they need, align myself with you as the buyer, as that person. I'm not growing anything. I'm not, because see, sales, revenue generation goes to market growth. And everything is about growth, right? How do I grow? How do I grow territory? How do I get market share? How do I find that 5%? By being parallel in behavior, mindset, and values of the 5%. And then we'll attract each other and come together. It's kind of organic how it work out. It's crazy, but that's what we have to do. We have to align ourselves with the market we're in or that we're going at.
Well, it's so funny is I literally had other like sidebar questions, but every single one of them, you dropped the nuggets every single time you responded. You hit every single question that I could think of in just a little bit of time. And that comes with experience. And that storytelling that you do, that you've done, even on this episode with us today, has been extremely powerful. And it is no surprise as to why people call you in to be the guy to fix the issue. So thank you so much, Leighton. I mean, truly, truly, truly. You're talking, I'm like making mental notes, and I'm like, I got to go back and rewatch this episode. And then I got to make sure our person doing our business development watches this episode, because we need to rethink how we're doing sales. And we need to think about the fact that, yes, we can't do it the same. Like you said, we have to have an identity. Like you said, we have to like focus on what the need is. So if you're not doing any of these things, like the title of the episode is, of course, they are not buying from you.
Thank you so much for explaining how to turn a good product into a successful sale. It was a clear and helpful lesson in strategy. To quickly recap for our listeners, we defined the crucial role of internal communication in closing the sales gap, explored tactical scripts for confronting negative reputation head on, and outlined frameworks for shifting from feature selling to selling trust and impact. Thank you so much for sharing your invaluable expertise with us today. We truly hope this episode has inspired our listeners to immediately audit their sales process and strategically align their entire organization. To dive deeper into marketing, technology, and strategic performance, be sure to check out our other Soda Chat episodes. You can find them on our Spotify or YouTube channel. And don't forget to connect with Ebony Vaz and Leighton Kyler on LinkedIn for more thought leadership and insights. Thanks for tuning in to Solo Chat, and until then, stay strategic and keep winning.